Hello, and welcome to Sim.bc, where right now it's 11:35. To put some things into perspective, I woke up today at 11:30. My my alarm rang. Not because I'm hungover or anything, because it was a Tuesday yesterday. That would have been detrimental to my personality and to this video, actually. That's what we're gonna talk about. But because I'm working nights. So energy levels today might not be on the top of the charts, let's say. They might not be up there as high as I want them to be, that you want them to be. Because, well, basically just rolled out of bed, stood up, put everything up in the position that it needs to be for me to be able to record. And that's where we're at the moment. So, without any further ado, mates, let's get into it. I would like to begin with saying as well that... obviously, I'm a bit tired, so I might be tripping over myself in conversation. I might be arguing against myself at some points in time, right? Just bear with me for that. If you agree or disagree, please join in the comment section below. Create some form of discussion there. It's always good. It's always great. Please explain why you have a certain point of view, and that's gonna be amazing. If you like the video, leave a like. If you dislike it, well, leave a dislike. Use that power of yours as a viewer and leave your impression on it. Anyway, mates, as I said, without any further ado, let's get into it. So, the topic of today that we're gonna talk about is getting wasted on the weekends. Yeah? And I know some of you out there will be like, woohoo, yeah! Getting wasted on the weekends, am I right, people? Am I right? I'm a bit on the other way, actually. I'm like, this is a social convention that I do not really get. To be honest, right? It's one of those things that I just can't get my head around. First of all, you're intoxicating yourself, right? I mean, you basically are. In the gist of it, you're intoxicating yourself. It's not the best experience, is it now? Is it? I mean, truly, is it? You get hungover, people are always complaining about it, people are like, I'm never gonna drink again, but yet they go out and do it again. It's like self-imposed torture to some degree. It's very expensive, especially in Sweden, where we have a really high taxation on alcohol, because it's supposed to, I assume, offset or to some degree provide enough cash to fix the problems created in society based on alcohol for when you actually buy it, I assume, right? So that extra tax money is going to go to fixing society after you, as a person who drinks alcohol to a greater extent than you probably should, destroy something or harm something in society or someone else or yourself. And then those extra money is going to go to, trying to fix that and offset the negative effects, I assume. Another thing that's kind of weird, more than that you're intoxicating yourself, is that people are of the mindset that this is like a cultural right to us. Because many people often say that, we shouldn't legalize marijuana, or we shouldn't legalize cocaine, or we shouldn't legalize amphetamine, or you shouldn't legalize, etc., 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 all of these other drugs. However, alcohol, we should not make that illegal. And that's a very weird standpoint now, isn't it? Some people argue that, it's a cultural right, man. We've had it for all the time, back in the ancient Greece and back in the ancient Rome and so on and so forth, They were having wine, they were having wine then, they were having wine there, and we need to have wine now. And the old Vikings, they kind of had meat and they had beer and so on and so forth. That's like, it's just our cultural right. And I'm standing there like, yeah, but just because they did something 100, 200, 300, 1,000, 2,000 years ago does not necessarily mean that that's a good thing to hold on to. Other things that we could carry with us from those times were that women couldn't vote in public executions. I'm not saying that I want to go back to that I don't want to go back to the good old times in some regards and some aspects, but going back to the good old times, so to say, in totality, perhaps wouldn't be the best thing. So I would argue that argument doesn't really hold, It's such an intricate part of our society. Well, Yeah, but so was public execution, you know. And and when you were talking about Colosseums, people actually go watching gladiators fight to the death. I mean, that was probably considered to be quite an intricate part of society as well. Many people were working there, many people had there as their occupation, many people were brought there to fight. Animals were brought there. It was a huge source of income, the Colosseum, so to say. And the public executions was probably a family event to some extent, you know. There were people going there and watching it because it was some form, as I said, of event showing off that you shouldn't do these things. So just to say that, oh, it's an intricate part of our society and it's been happening, you know, all throughout time, well, that doesn't necessarily make it a non-problem. It does not necessarily make it something that we should shy away from and not actually try and handle in the best of our ability that we can do. So I just think, but obviously you can't just take it away strictly and directly, because, well, then it happens as it happens in the US, you know, when they were taking away alcohol but people were still selling it, and it became a bigger problem than it was when it was, you know, in some form of a regulatory state when the government could actually set bars for it. It's kind of the same as marijuana right now, I guess. In the Netherlands, people, I imagine that I've heard several times that in the Netherlands they have a lower than average problem with marijuana because they've legalized it, so that the government can go in and actually set bars and set standards for what is it supposed to do. It's same with in Sweden. Now this is going to be a huge generalization, I know that, right? But that we have less of a problem with prostitution in Sweden than there are in other countries. I don't have any experience with this, right? So I'm talking out of my nightcaps, I'd say. I'm just talking out of my ass here, but at least the people who are prostitutes probably have a better life because they can go and get, for instance, medical care, because prostitution in Sweden is legal. However, paying for prostitutes are illegal, and that's because they're supposed to get, you know, insurance and stuff like that, and not needing to lie what their occupation is so that they can actually get healthcare and so on and so forth. There's probably other reasons as well. Anyway, but that tends to sound like I'm arguing for having governmental regulation on alcohol, right? Doesn't it? Doesn't that sound like, well, based on your argument, when you're saying marijuana is legalized and you're saying prostitution is kind of semi-legalized, right? Then why shouldn't, you know, why shouldn't alcohol be legalized? And that's not what I'm saying. I think that alcohol should be legalized, right? I think that most things should be legalized, but they should be priced or handled in a certain way after how they're legalized and after the potential impact that they can have on society. So for instance, in Sweden, the Swedish government has for a long time tried to offset the balance of the destruction and harm that alcohol does and that people do when they're under the intoxication with, well, a higher alcohol price. So the more alcohol is in a beverage, the higher the price is. It's the same with petrol. That petrol is increasing in price because of, you know, because of taxation, because, well, it has some form of harm on society that it can do. So we're trying to drag in tax money from the people who actually buy the petrol so that we can make a change, a positive change to the environment to offset the negative change we do with our cars when we buy petrol. I imagine that could be the idea, right? That's one of the reasons why it exists. But that's not what I'm actually here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about if alcohol is a good thing or not. Even though I am not on the fence, I'm on one of the sides. I would say that, well, alcohol is just like any other drug. So I would say that depending on how you would handle marijuana or how you would handle cocaine or amphetamine and so on and so forth, you should probably handle alcohol in the same way. If you say no to drugs, then you should probably also say no to alcohol. That's just my stance on it, right? I would rather say make everything legal and then have regulations after that, right? So that we can say that, well, you can have this and this and this, but only in this amount, and then it's punishable, you know, after how you misuse this, and then we can have a taxation on it, and we can have some form of regulation on it, and it would probably be less of a black market if it's governmentally regulated or approved by the government, so that there are companies that can regulate it based on some strict regulations from the government. Now, this is obviously not a flawless system. Obviously not. There are problems with this as well. Huge problems. Like, we're actually pumping in other form of drugs into society, which might not be good, and legalize them so that people think that, oh, well, it's legal, so that means it doesn't have any harmful effect, which is not the case either. So you need to be able to inform in a good way. I'm just, I'm arguing out of my, as I said, I'm not really getting anywhere with that argumentation. I believe this is a discussion that has been gone back and forth for, well, the last 30 decades, now, but the last 3 decades at least. People saying that, oh, we should legalize this, we should not legalize this, blah, 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 yada. But what I would like to talk about with this idea and this mentality of getting wasted over the weekend is that, well, for once, you're intoxicating yourself to, well, for some people, to a greater extent than you can handle, and then you end up puking and you say, I will never drink again, but yet you do it, right? Which I think is very weird. Now, that could be because of the addictive nature of alcohol, right? Could very much be the case that you're actually getting addicted to it. But simultaneously, it's kind of accepted by society, and in some degree, it's even expected of society to drink to a certain extent, which I think is even more ludicrous, right? That we know that this has an addictive effect. Why do we then kind of expect people to drink? It's not like anymore like we're saying that, oh, have a cigarette just because you should. Right? I mean, society today, I would argue, is more like, oh, cigarettes are kind of bad, you can smoke if you want to, but that's up to you. However, alcohol is the other way around. It's more like, well, alcohol is kind of bad for you, but you should have a glass of wine, now shouldn't you? A glass of wine a day keeps the doctor away, am I right? That kind of mentality. And when you go out to a club, I mean, whew, don't get me started. First of all, you're paying to get into a club, yeah? This entire club industry is very ludicrous to me, and that's after me worked there, right? So, to begin with, alcohol at clubs are much more expensive than they are at home. First of all, very weird to go there if your intention is to drink. Second of all, your intention probably isn't to drink. You need to pay to get in. One, you could have had a normal party at home, which would have been more affordable. Third of all, you're gonna go into a room, right? Or a locale, an area, where the music is so loud so that you cannot possibly talk to anyone over the music. You need to scream into their ear, and most times they're just gonna turn around and look at you and be like, hey, yeah. And then you say, like, what do you think about this place? And they're like, haha, yeah. And you're just like, you do not listen to me at all. Which is probably one reason why people seem to feel the need of being heavily intoxicated in order to be there to begin with, because it's such a weird environment when you think about it, and people are wasting lots of money, and then they're going out of there and they're like, oh, I wasted like 5 grand yesterday, and still it's kind of socially acceptable. It's not socially acceptable to do it all of the time over and over and over again, but like once or twice people are gonna be like, hey, yeah, you did, didn't you? But if you do that every week, and people are gonna be like, you have a problem, mate. But it's still this idea of, you went in, you wasted 5 grand on a night out, and people are like, that's legendary, mate. You're gonna have that for the rest of your life. And sure, to some extent you will, but still weird, isn't it? Is it just me who believe that is still a really weird experience? Going out, getting wasted on the weekend, wasting lots of your cash, parts of your savings, right? And then people are like, 2 thumbs fresh, mate. 2 thumbs fresh. No one's going in and saying like, oh, you probably have a problem here, mate. Even though some people do, I tend to be the person who does that. Real bus killer, I must say. Obviously not to anyone, just the person who wasted 5 grand on a night out and didn't buy drinks to anyone else. Just lived the dream, so to say, all by themselves. But yeah, this entire club environment is really weird to me. Basically what you do is that you pay a fee before you get in. And the reason for why you pay this fee is obviously because, well, you're paying the guards to be there. You're paying the DJ. You're paying any other form of entertainment and any special occasion paid for that night or introduced by that night. Sure. But what you actually do as well is that you pay to get into an area where you can be drunk, but you don't need to be drunk with your friends in a in your own home where you can actually destroy things that you value. That's my interpretation of clubbing, right? You go out in order to be drunk in a restricted area with other people who are also drunk, and there is a minimum amount of things that you can break. Now, think about that for a second, right? Think about that mentality that I'm going to get so shit-faced, so out of my mind bloody smashed, that I need to pay in order to get into an area where I have a minimum amount of, what you would say, probability of actually destroying anything, and I'm gonna be joining up with other drunk people in order to enjoy this experience. And I know this is gonna cost me a lot of money, and I know that I'm gonna drink, when I'm out there, and I'm probably gonna drink even more before I get there, because the alcohol there is a lot more expensive, because they, in some way, I guess, want to disincentivize you to drink there, I guess. Maybe. Some reason for that too. But it's so weird that you feel the need to go out and pay to be in a restricted area with some of your other drunken mates. Just to, just to be in an area where you can't really destroy anything. Because otherwise, if you think about it, the other reason is to meet up with other people. And I totally get that. I totally get behind that. But surely there must be other ways of doing that where you can actually interact and be social with those people as well, without screaming in their ear and having them looking at you and be like, yeah. Now, anyway, I feel like I should getting this I'm saying discussion. It's more just like me voicing an opinion on the entire idea of alcohol in society, right? I do not really get it myself. That's not to say that I'm refraining from the entire social experience. No, I'm out clubbing. I've worked at clubs. I've been drinking, I've had those weekends where I'm going out and it's, you're spending a bit more money than you thought you would. You're feeling a bit worse than you thought you would. But in my experience, I'm like, why did I do this? Why is this really worth it? Once my friends are standing there and be like, yeah, you're gonna remember this for the rest of your life. And sure, I will, but what was really the point of all of this? Might just be me, yet again, who is a real buzzkill, and people are gonna look at me and be like, oh, this person, this guy, don't even talk to him, mate. He's the worst. Could very much be the case, but yeah, I just personally do not get this social convention of let's work all week and get so wasted on the weekend so that I feel bad for myself all Sunday, all Saturday, whatever, and then go back to work where I will just long for the weekend, where I will get absolutely smashed over the weekend again. Right? It's just weird to me. It's not to say that the people who can actually handle alcohol and just drink like one glass of wine, it's not you I'm targeting with this video, right? If you do that in the comfort of your own home and you're like, I don't have a problem, I drink at a very reasonable rate, that's all good, all fine, all dandy. The problem is probably when you're out on the weekends and you say, oh, I have a problem with alcohol, when you actually voice that opinion yourself and other people have voiced it for you, and you say, oh, I should never drink again, and then you find yourself with a glass of whiskey on your nightstand before you go to bed on like a Tuesday, and you're like, this isn't optimal by any means, which happened to one of my mates quite recently, and I'm like, dude, what's even the point? Don't you realize this could be considered as a problem? And he's like, yeah. So yeah, personally I don't get it. There's many people out there who do. Please inform me in the comment section below if you think that this is the best thing ever and I've entirely missed the point of all of these things. But yeah, as I said, for me, just weird. Have a nice one, mates, before I interrupt and before I offend more people. It's like the entire Western population, probably the entire Eastern, South, and North population, and Central. Before I offend more of the entire world, let's just cut it short here, mates. Have a nice one.